Hello, everybody. It's Lisa Starr with another episode of StarrCast Podcast. Many of you who I may know that I like to do yoga, and I've done yoga for 10 or 15 years. But I realized we haven't talked about yoga on this show, and I thought it was time. The statistics on yoga are really staggering. I mean, you all know someone who's doing yoga at least once a week, if not more. Data tells us that there are 36 million Americans practicing yoga. It does not say how often. There are 48,000 yoga and Pilates studios in the United States. That's almost double the number of spas. And the industry earns $9 billion a year in annual revenue. And another statistic that I thought was really amazing was that 48,000 number of studios is double what the number was in 2012. So in just the last 10 years, through a pandemic, the number of yoga studios has doubled. That says something about why you want to be in the yoga business. So I thought, okay, let's have somebody on to talk about that. So today we're going to welcome Carole Mckeon. She is the founder of she is the director of Verge Yoga Center in near where I live in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Verge had a prior life, but Carole is a new owner in the last year. And Carole's going to talk to us about her journey in the fitness world into yoga and what it's like to actually own a yoga studio. So thanks again for joining us, Carole.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
It's fun to see you not in the room, but on the screen.
You're one of my favorite students.
Oh, thank you.
Practice, and it's a pleasure to take you through your Saturday morning classes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I didn't pay her to say that. It's fun to see people in sort of outside that norm, right? Like not in your yoga gear, but in your sort of more owner and director role. So Carole, you and I talked about how you started in the fitness world, and it wasn't as a yoga instructor, correct?
Yeah, I have a degree in health education and business from Penn State University way back in the 80s. And at the time, I had a strong interest in jumping into the world of corporate fitness and health education because there weren't a lot of companies out there that had on-site fitness centers, believe it or not. Because I think we can agree that most companies now will have either an on-site facility for employees to exercise, or they subsidize a gym membership for their employees, because we all know, not just anecdotally, but there is lots of research backing up improvements in performance for corporations of the employees who exercise on a regular basis. So that was all just coming to be in the 80s and the early 90s when I was graduating college and trying to start a career. So it was a really exciting time to be a fitness trainer. I loved group fitness training right from the beginning. I have a bit of an extroverted personality, and I love leading people in a group through different modalities of exercise. So I got my first group fitness certification, I believe it was in 1988. So it was a long time ago.
Wow.
And at the time, yoga was just kind of something that other people did. So it was, I appreciate all kinds of movement. I'm fascinated by it all. But I was really into the high and low impact aerobics and muscle strength and conditioning. I was running competitively at the time with the corporations I was working with, and it was a lot of fun, and it was really good business. So I worked for some big name corporations on the East Coast, and
like corporations in fitness, or just like regular.
No, regular corporations. GE Capital Corporation, their headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. I worked for Xerox Corporation, and they were all just opening up fitness centers on site for employees.
That's exciting that you got to be part of that.
It was really fun, and it was part of a movement really in this country, and it was exciting. Yes, it was exciting to be a part of that. And
it was a real renaissance time for those companies who were so cutting edge, to think, oh, we're taking care of our employees' health. Of course, it benefited them. I mean, of course, you can't blame them. But you're right. That was not being done. It was just what you did at your desk from 9 to 5, and they didn't care about the rest of the time.
Yep. Yep. And I enjoyed what I did, but always on the side, I was teaching group fitness classes at little health clubs and fitness centers here and there, just kind of as a side hustle. And I always thought at the time, as late 20s, early 30s, that it would be a good business to be in if and when I wanted to start a family, which we did. And it really was a great part-time job when I have 4 children, and I was able to work throughout all of my pregnancies and throughout, the early years when my kids were young, when I stopped doing corporate fitness full time and just went into teaching group fitness. So long story short, I left the corporate fitness training world to just hone in on my group fitness teaching skills. And I had a short stint working for Reebok International in fitness, and I really enjoyed that. I've always been fascinated by marketing, and specifically the marketing aspects of fitness and health programs. So that was a lot of fun when I was in Chicago. So I started a family. My husband and I lived on the North Shore of Chicago, and I worked at multiple different health clubs and fitness centers, but nobody was doing yoga. And I remember sharing with you at one point, I had one of those aha moments when I was at a big fitness convention, and there was a young man who was invited to come teach yoga at a fitness convention. And at the time, like right now, you'd think, well, of course, because
right.
Such an important part of fitness. But at the time, it really wasn't happening. So when I took that class, I had that moment that this is a missing link in the fitness world, and I want to be part of bringing this to mainstream America.
You got that from one class?
Yeah, I did.
So it just felt, and I'm sure it wasn't an advanced class, right? But you just felt like, oh, this is what people need.
Yeah, it felt good on my body physically. And more than that, I wanted to learn how to do it so that I could share it with my clients. And a lot of my friends in the fitness industry at the time, this was in the 90s now, late 90s. And Pilates was making a big surge as well. And a lot of my friends were doing both trainings in both yoga and in Pilates. And I realized at that time with a young family that I couldn't be a master at both. I really wanted to hone in my skills in one or the other. And I'm an avid Pilates student now, and I love to take it. But yoga was the path that I wanted to go down for so many reasons. And physically, it just felt right. Felt like my body responded so well to it. And I was coming off of years of wear and tear on my body with all the running that I was doing and weightlifting and high impact aerobics and step aerobics. And I was hurting.
Right.
And in my 30s, if I'm hurting now,
imagine what it'll be like later.
Right, like where I am now. And so I originally turned to yoga. I would say I turned to it to kind of heal some injuries because it just felt good on my body. And then I realized that I could still get a really good workout and that good workout high that I was missing with my running. I could get it with a strong asana practice. So that I got into power yoga. I was trained in Ashtanga yoga, if you're familiar with the different styles, and it was very intense. But then I started taking other modalities and different styles of yoga that appealed to me on different days. And I realized that, you wake up one day and you might feel like that strong power workout. And some days you just feel like
just don't have it in you.
Yeah. So I started.
It's so true. I'm sorry. It's so true what you're saying about yoga entering the mainstream, because to my point earlier about how many yoga studios there were in 2012, and I went to a large gym that's owned by a hospital near where I live, and it had tennis and running and pools and the whole deal. And they had a yoga class on Saturday mornings. It was like one class all week. And I started taking it. And I went once a week faithfully for a year or two, and, learn the basics. And of course, that was a good way to do it, but you can't really advance your practice going once a week. But there was no other option. There weren't a ton of yoga studios but people, the demand went up. And of course, to your point, Carole, low impact, good for all ages, doesn't need a lot of fancy equipment. Everyone can do it. It may be you don't look like the instructor, but you can do some manner of it. And I just think it's great how it's gotten so popular. And now we do see the different other strains of it, not just Hatha yoga, but Ashtanga and the other Bikram. Now it's yoga everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is interesting. Your statistics. So starting in 2012, you started to see a big surge. And I think the peak of the yoga boom was around 2016, 2017. And yoga studios were a dime a dozen, and they were popping up everywhere. And then people started to hone in and find their favorite style. I know, you always have a favorite instructor. That's no different than in group fitness. The same happens in yoga as well. And you just, you find your groove and kind of settle in where you are. So it's interesting now in 2023 to see, there aren't as many yoga studios popping up, but more and more people are feeling driven,
practicing yoga,
practicing it on a more regular basis. To your point, it's not just once a week. And my goal as a studio owner now is to get our students through the door 2 or 3 days a week minimum. And we have some students who come in 6-7 days.
That's awesome.
Some of them are there's a program out there for everybody, and we've designed our schedule to address that. So it's not just the same yoga class or the same style every time you the door. There's lots of variety on the schedule.
Well, let's go back a bit to your journey. You're a fitness instructor. You've taken a yoga class. You like it. You're kind of freelancing at this point with your 4 kids. You were in Chicago and you moved back to the East Coast. How old were your kids then?
We raised our kids in the Chicago area. We didn't move here until 2013.
Okay.
So I was teaching yoga, and I continued to teach group fitness for a little while, but then I really, I don't remember when that I really just became a yoga instructor exclusively. And my kids were little, and
so it just kind of happened organically. You didn't say one day, I'm done with fitness. It just kind of worked out that way.
It was a nice blend. And my skills as a group fitness instructor did well. It was interesting. My skills as a group fitness instructor married with the new skills I was learning as a yoga instructor. And there were some yoga instructors out there who didn't have a lot of experience in the group fitness industry, and they might be able to do every yoga pose out there and demonstrate it, but to communicate how to break down a pose, how to teach a sequence to a group in a group setting. Do you see where I'm leading with this?
Yes.
The 2 different groups came together and I think added a lot to the party. And that is when I think yoga really started to boom, because as fitness instructors, we learned so much from the yoga community. I still am learning so much every time I open up a book or flip through a magazine or attend a webinar. I'm learning more and more about the very vast field of yoga. And I think that a lot of the really solid, amazing yoga instructors out there have learned a lot from group fitness instructors. Because you have to learn how to manage the energy in a room. You have to know how to sequence a class. You need to know how to break down a pose to present it in a teachable level. I
think that's so key to success, honestly, because when you are a new yogi and you're taking class, and in the old style, when the teacher used to be at the front of the room on the mat, and you would just watch them and do what they did, and maybe there was a mirror and maybe there wasn't.
Right.
Of course, without a mirror, you don't really know. You think you look like the instructor, and then when you see yourself, you're like, "Oh, wait, I don't." But they weren't always good, as you say, at like getting people to know they could do it. And I always liked that thing at Verge, like that instructors were very hands-on. They would make a lot of adjustments and suggestions and be able to break down a pose so that you could actually progress. I mean, I know that yoga is a journey and we're never there, but you want to feel after a number of years like, oh, I can do this a little better than I could when I started. And that doesn't come from watching. You need, to your point, instructors who know how to communicate with the room.
Most definitely. And we often say practice makes progress, not perfection. And it's so true. And I love to be able to see that progress with my students. And we do a pose of the month at Verge. Each month we just pick a random pose, and not a random pose, but we hand select a pose and we draw special attention to it during the month. And it might be a pose like, a couple months ago, it might have been down dog, and we all do a downward facing dog in all the classes that we attend. Everyone's very familiar with it, but we just draw special attention to it, and we might cue it differently and find different variations of it. We do you want to know the pose of the month coming up?
Yes, I do.
It's just a few days before the new month, but we're going to focus on butterfly pose, and it's a wonderful hip opener, a very good stretch for the groin and the lower abdominal muscles. We're just coming off of a tree pose focus this past month, so we've worked on that hip opening. So we draw attention to familiar poses, and we might just cue them a little differently, and by the end of the month, perhaps you can see greater progress in that particular pose. So I think that's important for people. Like you're saying, it's important to you, and I bet it is for most out there. You want to see your hard work come to fruition, and it's never going to be perfect because there's always something you can do with it and tweak it and change it. But that's what makes it fun.
That's part of the fun of a community practice, right? Because you think, you're on your mat, and I do love that. I often practice with my eyes closed, and I'm just not watching people around me. But once in a while you open your eyes and you're like, oh, wow, look what that person can do. Okay. And so you're just always working towards something. And that's the great part about practicing in a community, which brings me to what we've just been through for the last few years. We learned how to practice on our own. The pandemic came and everything shut down. And many, many fitness businesses, some figures will say 50% went out of business. Verge did not. So can you talk to us a little bit about, how it's been for you? You weren't the owner at that time, but you bought the studio, in the COVID time. How has it been to rebuild a business, and what was that like?
It was not easy. It was very challenging. And I think we learned a lot about ourselves in so many ways during the pandemic. In particular, in the business of health and fitness training and yoga instruction, like we really missed our people and that connection. And it was hard to go. I had never taught an online class before in my life. I'd never taken an online class, let alone lead one. And when we first went online, like 100%, we had to flip the switch. On a Friday morning, I taught a class, and by Sunday night, I had a call from the owner at the time, and she said, we're going to carry on classes next week, but they're all going to be on audio. We didn't do Zoom yet. We didn't have a Zoom account, and we just went audio. So I remember rolling up my mat that morning in my bedroom, because of course all my kids were home because no one was at school, and my husband was home. He wasn't at work, and so much for a nice big quiet house when everyone goes off to do their things, right? So I locked the door, I rolled up my mat, I put in my AirPods, and did a video recording of a class. And I remember looking at my empty mat and just pretending that there was a body on that mat, and I physically took that imaginary person through the practice, and it was very strange. So over the course of that next week, we decided to go on Zoom. Let's give this a try. Our students, they're going to be taking yoga classes at home. They want to see a body on the mat. So then we would demonstrate everything. We went through a whole workout, verbally cueing and physically doing the class. I called it cueing and doing. And I loved that. Not every instructor loved that. And there are some brilliant yoga instructors out there who physically can't do a whole practice while they're actually cueing it. And that was really frustrating for them. And I get that. But
your group fitness training probably served you well there, because you were used to leading the group and doing what was being said.
Yep. Doing and cueing. And we learned how to, our lefts and our rights. So when I lift up my right hand, I'm mirror imaging you, and I want you to lift up your left hand, and I'm cueing you left, but it's actually my right. It's very confusing. And we have a instructor training program that runs from October through May every year. And I have 12 brilliant women who are in the program right now at our studio, and I'm loving working with them. They're almost done. And mirror imaging teaching is a really challenging of what we encourage them to practice doing. But I learned how to do it on that Zoom camera, because if someone's watching you at home, it's just easier for them to follow you physically if you're cueing them on their same side. So I don't want to, go into too much detail with that, but they're new skills, right? First of all, I had to learn how to teach on a camera, and how do you motivate a group through, a rectangular screen. And you get very self-critical of your body image, your voice image, and it's just, you become very, it's just an uncomfortable situation when you first start doing it. Never lost my sense of humor.
Important.
It very important in all industries, I imagine. But we did the best that we could during COVID and kept classes running as best we could. Lost a lot of staff. I don't know how many were at the time, but before COVID, but there were a good core, I'm going to say 8. There were less than 10 of us who tried to keep the schedule afloat. And then remember when masks, they said that we could come back in person, but we had to wear masks. So we did that. But who wants to exercise with a mask on? Not just exercise, but in yoga, the breath work, pranayama, is an important part of what we do. Yeah. How does that translate with a mask on? So at one point we said the students didn't have to wear a mask, but the instructor still had to, so that, because we were speaking and obviously, more germs were, being thrown out there. With the masks on. So we lost a lot of instructors because they didn't want to continue to do that. And some instructors left the industry completely and started doing other things. They found other ways to pass their time. They found other jobs when things opened up. So it was not an easy time to be a yoga studio owner or fitness trainer. It was just really hard. And we had to find ways to keep the industry afloat. So at that point, during COVID, and I wasn't sure if my beloved studio where I was teaching was going to stay open. Rent is high. And if the students don't come through the door, we can't pay our bills. So the studio came up for sale, and I took it was a big leap of faith, but my full support with my husband. And we talked about it at length for several weeks, maybe well over a month, before it really came to be. And I took over in October of 2021. So things were just starting to lift. The mask mandate was lifting physically and metaphorically, and people started to come back. And we just crossed our fingers and hoped that when we opened the doors that they would come back in. And you know what we noticed right away is that they missed the community. They missed coming together as a group to exercise in community. And I think that they all appreciate it now. You've mentioned it several times in just this short conversation about the community of yoga. And that's really important and something that is very important to me and our staff. We are fully staffed. There are 22 of us. We have 20 instructors and 2 front desk ambassadors. A couple mornings a week, we'll greet you at the door. And we're open 7 days a week. We run 45 classes a week.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And most of them are still offered on live stream. That didn't go away. I think we learned a new revenue opportunity in a yoga studio that, first of all, a Zoom account is very affordable for most people and for most businesses. And whether you live stream 1 class a day or 5 classes a day, it's the same price. So it just makes sense to flip that Zoom camera on whenever we can. And we can only live stream 1 class at a time. So if we have 2 classes at the lunchtime hour, I can live stream only 1, but not the other. And people understand that. But we have most of our classes are still on live stream right now. And some people just choose to do it from home because they love our program, but it might take them 20 or 30 minutes to get here. And they got used to not having to commute to work, and they just like doing their yoga program at home. It's still part of their everyday life. We have one client who we haven't seen her in 3.5 years.
Unbelievable.
But if I look at her account on MindBody, she attends classes 3 or 4 days a week. So I still feel like I have that connection.
That's amazing. I mean, we were speaking of the community, and that's what I missed. And not to mention the warmth. It does help to practice in a warm studio for me. But the people at yoga class that I attend are not people I see anywhere else. I live far from you. I live 20, 30 minutes away. I only see them there. And yet some of us have been coming there for years. Yeah. And I feel like they're my yoga friends, and I miss them. I did miss that. So you took over October 21. When would you say you felt like you were turning a corner and you're starting to see your numbers go up?
It was, well, first of all, it's very seasonal in the fitness, or excuse me, in the yoga world. I guess in the fitness world as well, I would lump them together. That when I took over in October, we were entering a very busy season with the holidays. Busy in the studio, and but then things really drop off. Like second week of December, people have
they're so busy.
Parties and activities and events. So, and then we see a big surge in January because that's when people make their resolutions.
Right.
And, that's an exciting time to be in this industry because all the New Year's resolutions come out. And then, come February, it starts to dip down a little bit, but then things start to amp up again in April. Because people are getting ready for summer, and their energy level is increasing, and they want to get their bodies in better shape for the season upcoming, and then we're here in the Philadelphia area. Lots of people go down the shore for the summer, and it's a slower time for us, but then it amps up again when kids have to be back in school for sports. Like second week of August, we start to see a lot of people back who have been gone over the summer. But so when did I start to see it turn a corner? When I just think, I was looking back on my numbers just the other day, and I keep an accurate list of weekly attendance, and it was steadily climbing for a good 6 months. So what is that? October, November, December, January, February, March. So come April of 22, felt like things were we were going to be okay. And at first, whatever numbers we were looking at, we surpassed that in the first 6 months. And I was very proud of that. And my husband was relieved at that, and I was sleeping better at that point.
Right.
That I didn't feel like it wasn't so scary anymore. I knew.
Well, it's a big unknown. You didn't own a business before, and a retail-facing business.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was doing.
And it's not like a reservation business where you kind of know who's coming. Of course, we went more to that. I mean, back in the day before COVID, you didn't ever reserve class; you just showed up. Right. But now we've all been trained to book ahead. But it's difficult as a business owner to predict how many people you'll have on any certain day or for any certain class. And so it must have been scary, but Carole, everybody rallies around and they love your energy and personality. And, we all want to see the studio succeed as well. I'm sure students of any studio want their studio to be successful. So, you have that group behind you.
Yep. Thank you for that. And yes, it's, we have an amazing staff, and I simply steer the ship, but we all lift each other up and we work with each other. I have 2 instructors back in the back studio working this afternoon on a new format that one is going to teach next week, and she's nervous about it. So one of the other staff said, "Hey, let's come in and do some practice teaching," and unsolicited, that I was glad that someone just spoke up and said, "Let me help you out." And that's just one example of 100 I could give you about how we all really support each other. And I'm here every day. I live just a mile away. And my kids are at a point now that you asked earlier, how old were they when we moved here? I think it's more relevant how old they were when I bought the place, because I could never do what I'm doing right now and spend the amount of time that I spend here willingly. I want to be here. And I couldn't do it when they were still in school. So my youngest went off to college just this year. And I knew when we had made that decision and he had made that decision, that the time was right. And and change is scary, but change is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, why not, now that I have this free time? My kids have always been and will always be my number one priority, family first, always. But this is a family run business too. I think you've seen my husband work at the desk.
I have, and your daughter's been there.
Yep. My son was here earlier today. He works up in Malvern, not far away, and he was able to pop in for a lunchtime class today, and I love that. My oldest daughter took our teacher training program here a few years ago, and during COVID, actually, because she had the time to do. And she's a terrific instructor, and it's great to have her in the business. But I could not be doing what I'm doing in the amount of hours I spend here if they were at home. I think plenty of people have done it, and but it's not easy. I couldn't. So I can put the time and effort that I want into the program now because I have that time, and it's a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about marketing, and I think a little bit of my marketing background helped me with this program, because we do pop-up classes. So we have 45 classes a week, but then we do specialty classes, and they're not just yoga related. We certainly do some amazing specialty yoga classes. We just did yin yoga for better sleep on Sunday night, and we had 25 people show up on a Sunday evening.
That's fantastic. And I mean, everybody wants to sleep better. Why not?
Right. So we kind of couple health education with a yin yoga practice, and our instructor who teaches that is terrific. We did, on Tuesday nights, I do a restore and more practice where it's a restorative yoga, but then I bring in crystal sound healing. So sound healing is another untapped market, and we're bringing that to Verge Yoga, and our students are loving it. And it's sound healing is a fascinating concept, and it's just a beautiful experience.
Nobody doesn't love that when they have it. I mean, yeah.
When they have a sound bath. Yeah.
Right.
So I brought it in sometimes on a Saturday morning. I might do that this weekend, because we have a sound healing event coming up on Sunday night. So I see an opportunity with 25, 30 people on a Saturday morning class. And during Shavasana, I might.
Right. 5 minutes of that. Love it.
Say, hey, if you liked it, come back Sunday night. So constantly marketing our programs, and we sell a few products in studio. I've got some merchandise behind me here with our new logo on it. That was fun. I designed a new logo this year, and it has elements of the old logo. I think that's important for our students who have been with us from the beginning. The studio was opened in 2004, so we have a really good history. But I thought it needed, with the new ownership, it was time for a new logo. I was nervous about it, but it's been very well received, and people have really embraced it. And it's I'm working on a new website right now, because we need to update that. It was great. I had a lot of things lined up for me and ready to just update.
Well, it's the challenge of owning a business, right? Is that you have a business because you like yoga and you like to teach yoga, but you end up becoming a tech person and a software person and a marketing person. How do you decide, Carole? Tell us a little bit about how you decide what classes to offer and when, and how do you figure out what students are looking for in the schedule?
That's a great question, and it's a constant guessing game. And I describe it like planning a big party. And you spend a lot of time, effort, and money on your decorations and the food and the prep, and you set the table, and then you just kind of wait at the door and you hope that people will come. That's my life every day, at least 7 times a day with our class schedule. I just hope, I cross my fingers and hope that people will come. And I'm a people pleaser. I want them to have a great experience. I want them to leave feeling happier than when they walked through the door, feeling better, I should say. So, it's, a lot of it is a guessing game, and I don't do surveys, but I'm here every day, and I do ask and say, hey, if we bump, for example, we had an 8:15 class for a long time that I wanted to start it at 8:30. It just made better sense logically on the schedule, but I didn't do it right away. I started just asking, the 8:15ers, would you mind if we bump this class up to 8:30? Could you still make it if you had to stay that extra 15 minutes? So, and then I just make copious notes. I carry around a notebook with me all day long, and constantly referring to it to see what will work. we have an interesting demographic here, and I describe them in 4 different age groups: the 18 to 30-year-old, the 30 to 45-year-old, the 45 to 60-year-old, and the 60 plus. So I look at those 4 different age groups, and be easy just to separate them like men and women. But I don't do that because we have a lot of men here, but
you do have a lot of men.
We do, but in general, it's always going to be more women than men, but we do have, and I do market specific programs for men on particular instances, but I look at our demographic groups and say, what class will go with this group. So for example, we just launched chair yoga.
That's great.
For that. Yeah. And I'm marking that, you can guess, that's for our senior population. It doesn't have to be. The first class that I taught, that I had a 48-year-old woman come in and she said, you know what, I just felt like a gentle workout today. Can I take the class with the seniors? Absolutely.
Yes.
So, but I am marketing that to our senior population, and we're offering that one on live stream. But you know what I found out? That the live stream idea is great for the seniors who are at home, but a lot of seniors struggle with technology.
The tech, right.
So I'm encouraging some of our members who say, hey, my mom wants to take this, or my parents want to take this, but they don't know how to work Zoom. So I've asked them, if they can really coach them through it before the class starts, so they're not frustrated. The first class that I offered, I was so excited to tune in because my mother was going to tune in, and she didn't pop up on my little screen, and I called her afterwards and she said, damn Zoom, I couldn't get into it. So we'll work out those kinks. But, yoga for athletes is another program I feel really strongly about. I work with a lot of sports teams in the areas, in the area around here. And I've got some local high schools and universities that I'll go to the teams and train them on the field or on the deck of the pool, or on a basketball court. But I've invited those teams, to come here to the studio as well on off-peak times. So we have 45 classes a week, but there's a lot of downtime, and I'm trying to fill that downtime with other things. And there's, my mind is constantly racing with who can come for a 3:00 class. Well, the after school athletes can, maybe some brownie troops in the area. I'm going to reach out to the middle schools in the fall and see if I can fill in those empty spaces. But there's so much opportunity in a yoga studio. We have 2 studios. One is slightly larger than the other, so that I can, it's great that I can toggle between the 2 studios. Not all yoga studios out there have that opportunity, and potential for a 3rd studio in this space where I rent, but we'll see about that.
So you've been branching out, as you mentioned, into sound healing and some other that aren't traditional yoga. I mean, how far afield do you decide to go as a yoga studio owner? When does it feel like what's the right thing? Because that clientele is the same. Everyone wants wellness in some aspect of it.
I think it's important to note that whatever programs we offer here, first of all, I'm not an expert in any of them. So for self-defense, I started to say earlier, I had a conversation with a few women after a lunchtime class, and they said, oh, I'm nervous about my kids going off to school, particularly their daughters. And, it's a scary world out there. And I said, hey, we've got the space here. What if we did a self-defense class? We sold it out. We had 42 people, I think, attend that. And they weren't just our yoga students. So I was casting a wide net. And if we can get those people if we can get a group of interested people in one particular area to come in, and then they say, hey, that was a nice, welcoming environment. Tell me about your New to Verge class special. We always have a New to Verge special, and we take good care of our new clients because we want to get them in and make them feel comfortable so that they'll come back.
Of course.
Over again. So I'm open-minded to anything that, if there's large space in here and you want to come in and do a pop-up class. We did an Ikebana workshop last summer. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. The flower arranging.
Yeah. The Japanese art of flower arranging. One of our students lived in Japan for several years, and she said, hey, I'd like to do a little flower workshop. So I borrowed some tables for some friends, and we put newspapers down, and she got all the flowers from her flower person and brought in think 20 or 25 vessels and talked a little bit about it, Cabana. And it was just I brought in cheese and crackers and snacks and drinks for the students. And it was just a nice Saturday afternoon, something different to do that, to bring that sense of community. So when not practicing yoga, there are other ways that we can help enhance our clients' lives. And I think that, I hope that that makes the Verge Yoga Center special to our clients. And
well, it's more than just using quotations, a yoga studio, right?
Yeah.
It's a wellness environment where yoga is the foundation, but there are other things too. And I think it's a good springboard to other wellness modalities as you're trying. I mean, how great to be creative and a nice sort of escape for your brain to do some flower arranging. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and we have a very strong meditation group here. We have an instructor who teaches Tuesday morning meditation. We just did a pop-up class to see if people would come. They loved it. So then we made it a series. Then it was a 4-week series. We've been doing that for 2 years. And it's been immensely successful. And a lot of people who walk through the door to take a meditation class aren't necessarily yoga students, but we have very meditative. We have a variety of yoga classes on the schedule, and some of them are more meditative than others. So we've been able to introduce them to yin yoga and restorative and sound healing. And it's just a really great crossover. So meditation, sound healing, yoga, why not flower arranging and self-defense?
Why not? I mean, you do need to cast a wide net because people have so many demands on their time now that you need a big database to survive.
Yeah.
Carole, what's been a big surprise for you as a studio owner? Like, what are some things that you didn't expect or didn't plan on?
Well, I think learning how to run a business, like from behind the scenes, and working with an accountant. And, I do what I do because I love what I do. And I didn't really know, am I making money? Am I losing money? So that was very humbling for me to have to, ask a lot of what I thought they felt like stupid questions, but I just surrounded myself with good people that kind of like my counsel, that I could call and say, what does this mean? And what is this acronym for? So I surprised myself that I could learn these skills at my age. It's never too late to learn new skills. And there are so many different aspects to running a business. I didn't give myself any deadlines. I just took my time in learning how to do it all. And I learned how I wanted the place to be cleaned. And I shared with you earlier that, I didn't have cleaning help. I didn't have accounting help. I didn't have any of this help right away because I wanted to try to figure things out myself. But then I started to back up and say, well, I want to focus my effort in these areas. This is where I think we'll be most successful. And I can certainly source out the other areas and get people to help me. I don't have to be doing that stuff. So
no, but it is also helpful to have done it, right? Like when you've done every job in your business, you can be much better at gauging who will be successful in that job. And that's the role of an entrepreneur today, right? Like you wear so many hats: technology, marketing, the coaching of the staff and relationships with the guests. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'd say selling retail, never done that before. I've never had a retail job in my life. And you see the product behind me here, I way overbought. I was overzealous, thinking everyone's going to love to wear the new Verge logo on a sweatshirt. So if you can think of creative ways to sell the product that I bought before the holidays, I just... you live and learn, right? And it's not like it was holiday merch, so it doesn't have to be.
Luckily, it's what we call evergreen. You can, and it doesn't go out, it doesn't expire. So sweatshirts don't have an expiration date.
Yeah, so that I've made some mistakes along the way, but nothing major, and it's been a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. And I've mentioned it several times, but I really do love what I do. I not only love teaching yoga, I never want to stop doing that. And I always put myself on the schedule. I teach 6 or 7 classes a week because it's what I want to do. I think it's important to continue to do that. But I also really have a lot of fun with the behind the scenes stuff. Marketing, I mentioned Canva is a lot of Canva Pro for business owners is terrific. Mind Body. has a mind of its own. I've said
Mm-hmm.
that so often, but any studio owner will be, if you don't know about mind body, you will soon enough. But it's been a real learning process for me. And I just, no deadlines. I just say, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure it out. I have my notebook, I make the notes, and then I get back to it. And I'm big on goal setting, and I like to check things off and say, yes, I did that. So,
well, it's good that you're not pressuring yourself, to get things done. So in closing, Carole, do you have any words of advice for anyone listening who might want to be thinking about opening a yoga studio? Like, was there anything you wish you had known before you started down that road?
I would say 100% do it if you're being called to do it. And I thought about owning a studio for many, many years before I had the opportunity to purchase this one. And I was nervous because I talked myself, I was self-doubt and said, you don't know anything about running a business. Who do you think you are? And, that little self-chat got louder and louder. And if there's a way that you can quiet that voice and say, you can do it, you can figure it out, get yourself a counsel, get people that can help you in the particular areas we talked about today. And if you love what you do and you can find ways to continue doing that and own the business, like that, it's very rewarding. And I feel lucky. I'm humbled by this task to carry this program forward, because I really do love it. It's challenging, but it's fun. And I think if there's someone out there who has that, the same self-doubt that I had, I would say quiet that voice and just go for it.
Well, great advice. Thank you from one of your students who is so grateful for your energy and the space you've created. And I hope that your words resonate with others who are thinking about this themselves. Business ownership is a dream, but it's hard work. But, anyone can do it. You just need to put your mind to it. And as you said, surround yourself with people that support you.
Well, and I want to mention one more thing, particularly in our area, the Wayne Business Association. There's a community of small business owners in town here that I didn't even know existed. So I would say if people are, if you're out there, if you're in an area that, in a small town, and look out, talk to other business owners and see if they can, help you.
Sure. The Chamber of Commerce. I mean, there are local resources for that are really, really supportive.
And we all support each other. So it's a lot of fun. I'd say go for it.
Well, thank you for your words of inspiration, Carole, and I look forward to seeing you on the mat sometime soon.
Thank you, Lisa. Take care.